DeMar DeRozan now joins that team in Sacramento with the Kings. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Devin Carter, who they drafted early, Keegan Murray as well. A Kings team, DRS, that has been a playoff contender.
Is it going to equate to a championship? Probably not. That's not the goal. Make your team better every offseason. The Kings definitely got better with that move here, Ben.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
The WNBA is a unique market, right? It moves a little bit different. You take a bet, a limit play, even if the limit is 2 dimes on a side, you don't go from 11.5 to 12. You know what I mean? You got to go. Because if they bet you the second number, then you go, oh boy, now we have a decision that we really didn't think we got a big decision. Books love decisions.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. You know, Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Watch out for USA and Canada in 4 years. Cricket's going to be a sport that's growing.
I made my first cricket bet last week or over the weekend. I was getting a team that was leading like 150 to 5 plus odds. I'm like, I'm up 150 points and I'm getting plus odds. Where do I sign? I love this cricket stuff. What are you kidding me?
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to an all-new episode of Bare Knuckle Fighting Main Event here on SportsGrid. I'm Brian Ciano. Thank you so much for joining us as we take our weekly look at everything going on in the world of the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships. And there hasn't been much going on the last couple of weeks as far as fights, but that is going to be rectified this weekend. We get action once again out there in California for the second time with the BKFC. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But before we get into that, I want to talk about what we have coming up on the show throughout the rest of the episode. Coming up later on, coming up next segment, we're going to talk to bantamweight Michael Papa G. Larimore. We're going to do a double shot with him, get to know him a little bit more as he tries to climb up these rankings. Has had a great showing so far in the BKFC. 2-0, undefeated. Another guy from that Shift MMA down in Tampa, where it just seems to produce champions and top-level fighters as far as the BKFC is concerned. Of course, we talked to one of those last week when we brought on our man Jared Warren, Captain Deadpool. Of course, you also have David Redneck Mandela, both of them holding titles. You have so many other guys down there as well, like Bryce Henry. You have just, Michael Larimore. Just over and over, you can pick out a bunch of names of guys who are having great success in the BKFC. And a lot of them are coming from Shift MMA. While other gyms are still trying to figure this thing out, they seem to have perfected what they need to do to get the wins and how to be great bare-knuckle fighters. And it certainly has gone their way so far. We'll talk to Michael Larimore about training there, about his accomplishments so far in the BKFC, about what brought him to the BKFC, and so much more when we do a double shot with him coming up next. After that, we're going to hook up with Josh Stay Down Watson, the heavyweight. It's been a while since we've seen him, since that Hardy fight, that epic knockout that went viral of him dropping the former NFL linebacker and UFC fighter, and basically sending it back in from the BKFC. One fight, got dropped, was gone. A lot of hype when he came in, a lot of way quick exit out of it. So we'll talk to Stay Down Watson, find out what he's been up to. We'll talk to him about the injury he suffered that kept him out of then going against Big Ben Rothwell, and why we haven't seen him in a while since. We'll get all that coming up later on with Josh Stay Down Watson, and then we'll finish it up talking to a man we know well on this show. It's time for a Shark Attack. Zach Callum is going to be joining us, Gloucester's finest. Of course, repping New England in general, up there in Massachusetts, repping Connecticut. We'll see what is going on with him, checking with him as he gets ready for his fight against Ruben Roundtree. Both Roundstone, all these guys going to be fighting out in Sturgis for BKFC 63. It's going to be an awesome card, a lot of great names that you know from top to bottom, and it's going to be a new venue that we have never tried out before. I mean, we've seen the BKFC at high elevation. We've seen them at Denver. We've seen them in Albuquerque. We've seen them have tons of fights in Florida. Go around the country in other areas like Connecticut, like New Orleans, like Omaha, Kansas. There's been many, many fights for the BKFC in many different areas. We've seen them out in California. We're going to see them for the second time doing that this week. We have never seen them in Sturgis, and certainly never seen them in front of thousands and thousands of bikers. I'm sure there's been plenty in all these areas that we've seen them in already, but where it's just all bikers, have not seen that, and that's going to be very interesting. Might be just as interesting to watch the crowd as it is to watch the fights, because you get a lot of people that think they're tough guys and think they could fight at any combat sports event. What do you think it's going to be like at Bike Week at Sturgis? Going to be very interesting to see how that goes, but I'm sure they are going to love and eat up the BKFC as much as any audience that the BKFC has ever been in front of before. Can't wait to see that August 3rd out there in Sturgis. All those fighters that we will be talking to later on will be on that card. But first, we get a card this weekend, as we said, out there in Pechanga, Temecula, California. You're going to see BKFC Fight Night. And we're going to get a lot of prospects on this card, a lot of names that you might not yet know who are going to be fighting on this card, trying to make a name for themselves, that were out there at tryouts in California. Our man Chris Lights Out Lytle, of course, has been out to California before, seen some of the talent out there. There is a growing number of fighters out there. Of course, we got guys, that we've seen before, like Andrew Angelcourt out there repping Barstow. We've seen plenty of other fighters from California. It's plenty of fighters up and down that state in doing boxing, MMA. We'll see how many of them can really take to the BKFC. I'm sure plenty of them can, many will, and we will see who the best that we have seen so far from there as we get, essentially kind of a prospect series card, even though it's a fight night card. A lot of new faces, a lot of, barely seen faces in the BKFC, so it can, turn out to be more of a prospect series card in many ways with some of these matchups that we have. Some fighters who are going to be out there hungry, wanting to make a name for themselves with this new organization. But there are two names that we have seen that we know so far that are going to be headlining this one, and that is Robbie Peralta against Ruben War. Now, these guys, Peralta a little more experienced than War. Of course, coming in there so far in the BKFC at 2-1, 3-1 actually. He's got great wins over guys like Pete Pettis and Martin Trey Brown, and then, of course, coming off a loss over Bryce Henry, an up-and-comer, a young fighter who has made a name for himself in this division and in this sport. So definitely not a loss to shake a stick at. This was a tough fight that he faced. He ends up with the loss, and now he'll face against a guy who's going to be just as hungry in Ruben War for many reasons. One of those is he's also coming off a loss, fighting against Andrew Angelcourt, that first card out in California, out there in April. He got the loss. I was surprised he got the loss, honestly. And that's no slight on Angelcourt. He's a tough guy. We've had him on the show many times. We like him. But I thought that Ruben War kind of controlled things a little more in that fight and maybe got shafted by the judges. Before that, of course, he got a win against Lorenzo Coca. So he's looking to get back into the winning ways, get back into, over 500 as far as his BKFC record. And we know that he is hungry. This is a man who is a, single father, taking care of multiple kids and trying to make himself a better situation because, as you've seen, I don't think he showed us on our show. He talked about it on our show. Guys trying to take him out. Fighting out there now in Louisville, but he's still got bullet holes in his car. We saw when he talked to our man Brian Socha, he literally got out and showed him the gun holes, the bullet holes in his car from people taking shots at him down there in Louisville. Not the rough area. It's rougher than you would expect. When you talk about Louisville, people think about horse racing. They think about, bourbon. They don't think about people taking shots at you. And Ruben War's lived that life, and he wants to better his life, wants to better his kid's life. So he is hungry to make it up to the top of the mountain in the BKFC, get that gold, get those bigger paychecks, and make himself a better life for him and his family. Robbie Peralta has been there and done that. This is a guy who made it all the way to the UFC. Now fighting the BKFC. Does he still hold that drive and that hunger? So far, he's shown that with some wins, but now coming off a guy like Bryce Henry, does he hold that same drive that a guy like Ruben War is going to, have, and that same kind of kill or be killed mentality? We will have to see that. I think this is going to be a dangerous fight for both these guys. I think both, they both know how dangerous the other guy is. They both respect the other guy. So it's going to be interesting to see who can shift to that extra gear and get the win that they both need right now to get into the conversation as one of the top guys in this division. It's going to be hard. I'm excited. I think it's going to be violent between both these guys when they meet up out there in Pechanga. Also on the card are some other names you may know, and some of them, in desperate need of wins, more desperate than the guys we just talked about. A guy like Jordan Christensen, who has been the BKFC here a while right now. 2-4 is his record. And coming off a loss to Sean Brooks, losing 2 of his last 3, 4 out of 6. Is this win or go home time for him? We will see. That's going to be a big, big fight for him. Also, Brett Fields, he's 1-1 now. He actually got a win in his last fight. Lost his first one against Lloyd Mix, won against Kane Tomlinson, but he's got a fight up against a guy in Louis Villasenor who lost to Bercier in his first fight. So both these guys needing the win, needing the victory, needing to stay relevant and make a name for themselves in the cruiserweight division. Different fights there, sorry, actually. Mix those ones up big time, obviously. Skipping back and forth, a lot of different guys that maybe not against the guys that, we're talking about. Christensen 2-4 going against Pellegrino. Pellegrino new to the game in the BKFC. Fields going against Villasenor. 1-1 for him. Villasenor 0-1. Both these guys want that victory bad. And then you have a guy who's another situation, maybe win or, you might be done with the BKFC in Van Vo. 0-3 so far in the BKFC going against Pettit, who's 1-1. There's a lot of hungry fighters on this card. Some of them because they're new to the BKFC and want to make a name. Some of them because they need to hang around with the win. So we'll see. Some of those some of those instances, you get that kind of fight going on, and it could be the most exciting fight that you've seen, even though it might not be the biggest name. So even though this isn't loaded with huge names like we're talking about with Sturgis coming up next, it is loaded with hungry fighters, and that can make it very interesting and make for some big knockouts. We'll see this weekend out in Pechanga, the BKFC Fight Night.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
What he's doing on a 5-day basis, and when he pitches at that ballpark, if there's one thing you notice, there's not one empty seat.
The excitement he's brought to that city and the fact that fans are starting to come back, especially on the nights he pitches, I mean, it is so cool to see. It's so overdue, and you can't help but root for Pittsburgh.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid as we start to look ahead, because we had a great card this weekend. We spoke about that last segment, how great it's going to be. Look at some of the fights and some of the news we had just gotten recently, but now we got to look forward a little bit more, because we have a card coming up in a couple weeks out in Sturgis that is going to be absolutely loaded. So we got to start breaking it down now, because there's just not going to be enough time to talk to all these great fighters in just a week or two. So right now we're going to bring in Michael Papa G. Larimore coming on with us right now, talking about his fight coming up against Derek Perez out there, BKFC 63 in Sturgis. But before we get into that fight, before we look ahead to the fight you have coming up I want to look back a little more, Michael, let people know you a little bit more. Some people might have seen your fights on the BKFC. Some people might not know you as well yet. So, you had an MMA career. You've been working on that, obviously, as many fighters in the BKFC have. Before they come into the BKFC, they have, some other combat sport that they kind of, were big into beforehand. So what drew you into the BKFC? What made you want to switch over and do this? And I know you're still doing MMA at the same time, but what made you want to take the gloves off and try that for the first time?
I honestly have always kind of joked around with my friends about me being tailor-made for BKFC because of my upbringing and whatnot. We'll keep it at that. But I was presented with an opportunity, man, and I'm all for opportunity. So I jumped on it, man, and here we are. I'm very much interested in chasing a belt now, to be clear. I'm not here just for fun. I'm not here to just make a check. I want to show that I'm the best.
And you're doing a great job so far. We've heard before people say that, they've been doing this for a long time. She said, now you're getting paid to do it as far as, just throwing bare knuckle fights. You actually had the receipts. I saw you put the post up of you back as a teenager throwing down in the backyard.
Yes, sir. I've always been with it, man. I'm always down to throw some hands.
So, long time coming for you, I'm sure. What was it like making that transition for you for the first time? I read, they had a good article about you on the BKFC site and app. The first time you were just thinking, let's just get a quick fight, quick win, and move on, make a little money. What was it like that first time? What kind of adjustments did you have to make? What kind of things maybe did you not expect that you had to get used to continue in this, this combat sport the way you have?
I think the only big change for me was the environment, because I was used to fighting on smaller regional shows. But the crowd pop when I walked out, man, because I had a bunch of folks out, you know what I mean? Tampa represent. But I think that was the biggest change. A fight's a fight to me. But the stage was the thing that I noticed, and I love it. I've been dreaming of moments like this since I was 14, 15 years old, bro. I'm telling you, I'm made for this.
Yeah, there's plenty. And Tampa is a great area right now for the BKFC, for its fighters. Of course, 2 champions there right now. And, of course, Captain Deadpool, Jared Warren, and, of course, Dave Redneck Mundell. Plenty of other great fighters from the Tampa area, as you are as well. So, a hot spot right now for the BKFC is Tampa. What do you think is something that feeds that into there? Is there something about Tampa specifically that really makes it tailor-made for the BKFC and for its fighters?
Man, I'll tell you what it is. I wouldn't say it's Tampa that's tailor-made for it. It's Shift MMA that's made for it. So I train out of 2 gyms. I train out of Gracie West Chase, but where I train for these fights, my management team is Shift. They just have something special out there, bro. Jihad and Anwar and 300, they just do it better than all these other guys. And they got their formula, bro, so I just follow instruction.
Yeah, Shift has had, a great run so far in the BKFC in this growing young sport. It's a lot of people still finding out about how to do this, about how to do things right in the BKFC. It seems like Shift already, has perfected the formula somehow with all their fighters. All you guys doing very well so far in the BKFC, doing your thing. What was the thing that made you want to shift over? Because, for you, no pun intended, because, when you look at your MMA record, your wins were by submission. So obviously you have a great ground game, and that's something that you focused on a lot. So what made you decide, let me show what I could do with my fists instead of, going for the subs?
So to be honest with you, bro, I prefer stand-up. I end up submitting guys because you put the hands on some guys and everybody turns into a wrestler. And so that's how I ended up getting the submissions. But my submissions are after I've hurt somebody already. I'm not like I have good jiu-jitsu because I have a good jiu-jitsu coach. But I'm not. If it's up to me, bro, I'm knocking everybody out.
And so far, you have shown that. 2 knockouts in both fights. First round finishes in both. Is there anything that you've found so far that just lends itself to you that these quick finishes? Is just the way things have gone? Is it something that you look for? To get out there, be aggressive, and put hands on them right away, and make them, kind of reassess things as the fight goes on real quick. Well, what has it been that has factored in so far to these quick finishes you've gotten?
I think when I'm actually able to fully express myself with my stand-up, I pull a lot of people into traps. And by being aggressive, that kind of thing tends to happen. And it just so happens to be in the first minute of the first round.
Well, it's gone so well so far. When you go back and forth like you have. You just recently had an MMA fight since your last BKFC fight. What's it like for you to have to go back and forth? Is there something mentally you have to switch? There's a lot of stuff with training you have to obviously fix all straight off on because of all the different aspects of MMA versus just the boxing and the BKFC. What are the biggest changes and adjustments for you as you go from one to the other?
So I actually had some time this camp to break it apart and focus on things. So this camp, I'm strictly focused on boxing and my jiu-jitsu. I'm never not going to do jiu-jitsu because my long game is MMA. I will be the best mixed martial artist you have ever seen, mark my words. But I've had 6 to 8 weeks this camp to spar boxing and get out to shifts twice a week. And before my first 2 BKFC fights were on 2 days' notice, both of them. So I was just, God blessed me with some things, and I jump on the opportunities to express that and show that.
And you have so far. It's been great. I'm happy to hear that you got a full camp because we've already seen great things from you, but I'm sure the more time you have, the more we are going to see. So far in these fights, like we said, 2 quick finishes. But what's been, you talk about in the article, the biggest motivating factor for you, obviously, is your family. That, it's all about, providing food for them, putting food on the table, and that's what matters most to you, and why you do this.
Yeah, you ask me, you don't got a family, you don't got nothing. So I look up to my wife, I look up to my daughter, I look up to my son as well. And I see the love in their eyes, and I want to give them the world.
Well, you're doing so good so far, so good, Papa G. We'll come back with Michael Larimore. Next segment, talk a little more about his fight coming up out in Sturgis.
I think the one comparison that I'd like to make that reminds me of Tiger is Scotty's ability to make shots on a Sunday look like shots on a Thursday. And Tiger was so good at doing that too. In the high pressure leverage moments, he didn't lose a step. He was still able to hit it pin high. He's still knocking down flag sticks. He doesn't miss-hit it.
Only on SportsGrid.
The WNBA is a unique market, right? It moves a little bit different. You take a bet, a limit play, even if the limit is 2 dimes on a side, you don't go from 11.5 to 12. You know what I mean? You got to go. Because if they bet you the second number, then you go, oh boy, now we have a decision that we really didn't think we got a big decision. Books love decisions.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
What he's doing on a 5-day basis, and when he pitches at that ballpark, if there's one thing you notice, there's not one empty seat.
The excitement he's brought to that city, and the fact that fans are starting to come back, especially on the nights he pitches, it is so cool to see. It's so overdue, and you can't help but root for Pittsburgh.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on Sports. We continue to talk with Michael Larimore, who's going to be fighting on that BKFC 63 Sturgis card. And, you talked to us last segment about, that you've never fought in front of the audiences like you have for the BKFC, that pop when you come out, all that stuff that, a fighter really can draw off of. I'm sure we haven't been there before. Obviously, they've never had fights there before, but I'm sure there's going to be an even crazier scene, bigger pop, nuts, more nuts fans out at Bike Week at Sturgis than anything anybody has ever experienced before. What do you think about being able to fight on that card, and what are you expecting as you go out there in front of thousands and thousands of bikers?
Well, I'm so excited, man, because you know bikers love a little violence. I'm keen to violence myself, so let's get after it, man. It's gonna be a good time.
Well, we're looking forward to that. I can't wait to see what the audience is like. We've had some great audiences, whether it be out in Denver or out in Albuquerque, out down in Miami, Florida. There's been some great audiences for the BKFC all over, but I have to imagine Sturgis is going to be insane. I mean, when you get any kind of combat sports, you get some fights in the crowd. We might have a little more. We would have more fights on the crowd than we do have the card. By the time the night is over, we will see. But all that is something that's going to be exciting out there. August 3rd in Sturgis. But now you're fighting Derek Perez on this card. He's 2-2 in the BKFC, but his 2 losses have been to some of the top guys in that division, and Ryan Reber and Rockstar Richardson, who just gave up his title in a loss. He's long reach like you. What are you expecting, and what do you see when you've watched his fights so far?
I see sloppiness. He's got a lot of experience, but he doesn't really seem to sharpen up. He doesn't really seem to learn from his losses and his mistakes. He's the same guy now that he was in his first fight. I'm going to exploit that.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you do that. We're looking forward to this fight. It should be, a great card, as we said, overall. Obviously you never want to take your opponent for granted, but, you spoke about how you want to be, fight somebody in the top 5 next. That'll be, if you win this fight, you'll be 3-0, still undefeated, and you think that you deserve, one of the top guys in the division. Is there anybody you are looking at particularly that you really want to take aim at, or is it just anybody in that top 5, anybody that can get you to that next rung of the ladder and get you closer to that gold?
I got a lot of love for my homie Ryan, so he's the last guy that I want to fight. If it comes down to it, whatever. I love him, but I will smash all of those other guys in that division, no problem. 2 in the same night. It's a bunch of little, pardon my French, it's a bunch of little to me. I'll leave those guys up, man.
Well, it'll be interesting to see any of those matchups. Of course, there's a lot of great fights to make right now in that division, and a lot of things that could be up for grabs. You've also talked about how you want to be in the top 5, and not just that division. You want to be a 2-division top 5 guy, contending, battling back and forth for titles, maybe even becoming a double champ. What's that going to take for you to do? And is there a plan for that? Of once you get into this top 5, you change the weight class and then go try to fight there. Have there been talks with Dave Feldman and Nate Shook about doing that, bouncing back and forth, or is this just a plan that you're coming up with?
It's honestly kind of just here for now, but if you can speak it, it will happen. And so I'm flexible with the weight class. I fought all the way up to 155 before. I'm very interested in getting this 35 strap first and foremost. Maybe a money fight here or there, make a little change. And it's inevitable that Brandon Allen becomes champion. So maybe I got to go all the way up to 55 and beat somebody up at 55.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing that plan put into action and seeing you continue to fight. And before we let you go, talk about coming up with things in your head, your plans, the things you wanted to accomplish. I saw an interesting list you put up there about your goals for 2024, and one was your son, and you want to, like you said, support for your family and take care so your wife doesn't have to work. My favorite one though was homemade ice cream. I mean, I love ice cream, but I feel like that's kind of been perfected. And, I feel like that's one of those things, like you do it and then it takes so much work. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to buy it next time. Like, what makes you put that up there that you want to make homemade ice cream for the first time?
Listen, man, I like to cook, and desserts is not one of my strong suits. I cook sultry foods, you know what I mean? I cook good meals. And so I need to figure out how to make a damn dessert. And what better dessert than some ice cream, though?
That'd be great. Maybe you can get some made before Sturgis, and then that could be, the post-fight meal there. There's some homemade ice cream, make it even that much sweeter. I'm with you. I do a lot of cooking. I do a lot of the meals, at home. But when it comes to dessert, that's the wife. She's the baker. I like to mix and match and just freestyle. She's like, nope, I got to follow the recipe. So dessert is not my forte at all. But either way, Michael Larimore, Papa G, we're looking forward to watching you fight again in Sturgis. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great fight against Perez out there in the rally.
Thank you, guys, man. God bless you, brother.
That was Michael Larimore. Going to be back out there against Perez. Bantamweight bout, Sturgis, August 3rd, BKFC 63. Make sure you check it out.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
What he's doing on a 5-day basis, and when he pitches at that ballpark, there's one thing you notice: there's not one empty seat.
The excitement he's brought to that city, and the fact that fans are starting to come back, especially on the nights he pitches, I mean, it is so cool to see. It's so overdue, and you can't help but root for Pittsburgh.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Watch out for USA and Canada in 4 years. Like cricket's going to be a sport that's growing.
I made my first cricket bet last week or over the weekend. I was getting a team that was leading like 150 to 5 plus odds. I'm like, I'm up 150 points and I'm getting plus odds. Where do I sign? I love this cricket stuff. What, are you kidding me?
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in the Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid. We continue to look at this great card coming up in a couple weeks out in Sturgis. It's going to be crazy out there. We're looking forward to seeing all these fights. One of those guys we're looking forward to seeing give back in the squared circle is Josh Stay Down Watson. It's been a while since we've seen him in there. Josh, thanks so much for coming on with us. We appreciate you joining us as you start to get ready for this fight. How are you feeling right now? You had a couple weeks before the fight. Where are you at right now in camp? What's going on with you as you prepare for this?
I'm feeling pretty good. Just been dealing with old man issues, just the day-to-day sorenesses and stuff like that. But I'm doing pretty good.
It's been a while since we've seen you in there, unfortunately. Before we get into the most recent delay right now, I want to go back, for people who might not know you as well, because we've seen you a couple times in the BKFC, but maybe not everyone followed your career as much before that. I want to know, you took before you got to the BKFC and put on these great performances that we've seen so far, you had a long layoff there, about 8 years. What was it, from your MMA days coming into the BKFC that, what kept you out, and then what drew you back into fighting and made you decide that, coming into the BKFC and just throwing down fist to face is really where your calling was?
It was just getting to that point of my career, hitting the level of, I'm only fighting like top-notch guys who are not, they're not working, they're just training. And where I'm working 40 hours a week, single father, stuff like that. I got a mortgage, got payments. I gotta work. And it's hard to, stay healthy when you're, training 5-6 days a week, double sessions, and then throw in there also 40 hours a week. And my body just couldn't hold up to the task. So that was pretty much it. I was, I'd be getting ready for a fight, and then have, or not getting ready for a fight, but getting ready for like fights to be in shape for the fights. Then I'll hurt my back, such as the whole Rothwell issue. And have to when fights would come across the table, be like, no, I'm not 100%. I can't do it. I got to work instead of being able to train 27. So it was more so that just kind of the timeline of my body. And, once BKFC came around, and I was like, it's a whole lot easier to stay healthy on your upper body and keep your arms moving than it is to keep your back healthy, your knees healthy. You're not wrestling, you're not grappling, you're not throwing kicks, or you're not getting kicked in the legs, stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to stay healthy for a bare knuckle fight than it is for MMA.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of former MMA fighters that are in the BKC now talk about that, how much, just the being able to focus on just the boxing aspect, the boxing, the moving, the feet, all that stuff, not having to do the grappling, the rolling, all those things that can bang you up really good. It has been huge for their career, and it's been great for you, obviously, so far. You talked about the back with Rothwell. That fight was, supposed to happen out in Denver. You got a little banged up. Tell us, what happened with it. As you mentioned, it was a back. How bad was it? What was the recovery like, as you were preparing for that fight, and unfortunately had to get laid up a little bit?
It wasn't even that bad. It was just the fact that I was already off of the Hardy fight, and it was already, sure, between the Hardy fight and Rothwell, I think was 11 weeks. But as most remember, I had a big hole in my face after the Hardy fight. So it gave me a long period of time where I couldn't even spar. I couldn't take a punch in the face without, the risk of that wound opening back up. So it was hard to go, most people, you have that fight and then you have that little bit of downtime to recover. I didn't have any downtime to recover. I jumped right back into a camp and my body didn't appreciate it. Me hurting my back in a camp isn't rare. Usually takes like a good week or two to kind of bounce back. Problem was this time around, I was at like the 3-4 week mark before my back was even like remotely feeling better. And, to go from your biggest fight of your career to your next biggest fight of your career, you want to be 100%. And the biggest thing I was asking for was just for the fight to get bumped back like maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I think the South Carolina card was, 2 weeks afterwards. And that would have been probably ideal for my body to kind of bounce back. We would have gone from being like fourth to last on the card and, barely even I don't even think on the poster Rothwell or Josh were even pictured on it because there were so many big names. Could have gone from being fourth on the card to being the main event out in South Carolina. But his camp didn't want that, and so I didn't have enough time to recover, so they just replaced me.
Yeah, it went from one Josh to another, and it did not go well, as we know, for Copeland on that fight. Definitely not a guy you want to face not being 100% is Rothwell, what he's done so far in the BKFC, but you don't shy away from any opponent or anything, so we're looking forward to seeing you back in there again. Was it just a matter of letting things heal up and, just not having the right matchup of why it didn't happen so long, almost a year now, or was there other factors at play as well, like you talked about before with things with family or your work? Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's just the I've been kind of chalking up to like return on investment in the sense of me doing what I did with Hardy and wanting appropriate pay, but I understand the economics of it in the sense of not many people know me by my face. Not many people, people recognize that Hardy got knocked out, but I'll have a conversation with someone and they don't even realize it's me that did it until they see the video. So I get it. You throw me on a poster, I'm not really increasing sales or views. People who know who I am, they're already subscribed to the app or they're my friends and they're already watching the fights. So I'm not really bringing much more in as in the sense of viewers. So with me kind of, holding my ground in the sense of, not doing this for nickels, I just kind of, I didn't really get very many offers. I haven't actually really any offers. I think the only time anything even came across my my desk was Connecticut, which would have made sense since I'm from Maine, but that didn't pan out. And I'm glad it didn't because the person they were talking about me fighting, I can't think of his name, Wolf or something like that, but he ended up getting not even medically cleared the day before the fight. So I am very glad I didn't take that fight.
Well, so are we, because now we get you on the Sturgis card, and honestly, you're fighting Roundstone here, but if there's a guy built for Sturgis Bike Week fight card, I think Josh Stadon Watson is. I mean, I saw the great post on your social media, you with your bike out there. So, are we going to be riding right into the ring there? I know they have the big entrances sometimes. Like, let's pull that out, ride that right to the ring, and then go in and fight.
That would be nice, actually, or at least grab somebody else's. No, I was in the middle of thinking if I was going to be riding out and making an event out of it, because where the fight's going to be at the Buffalo Chip. I have friends that know the owners of the Buffalo Chip, and so possibly be able to get into, staying there earlier, and then even maybe getting some sort of housing after the fact and ride out. So because I wasn't going to ride out and then do weigh-ins like the next day. That's way too close. I'd have to ride out, multiple days early so I can kind of relax, and then obviously plenty of time to relax afterwards with the bike.
Well, hopefully you get to make that come true. I know you got responsibilities at home with your son, and how proud you are of him that you posted on. I think he just recently had a birthday. So, keep up the good work there at home. We look forward to seeing you back in the squared circle out at Sturgis against Roundstone. Josh Staydown Watson, the man who sent Hardy packing real quick from the BKFC. We appreciate your time and look forward to seeing what your next handiwork here is in the squared circle.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Josh Staydown Watson. Make sure you check him and all the fights out of Sturgis. It's going to be a loaded card.
The WNBA is a unique market, right? It moves a little bit different. You take a bet, a limit play, even if the limit is 2 dimes on a side, you don't go from 11.5 to 12. You know what I mean? You got to go. Because if they bet you the second number, then you go, oh boy, now we have a decision that we really didn't think we got a big decision. Books love decisions.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Watch out for USA and Canada in 4 years. Cricket's going to be a sport that's growing.
I made my first cricket bet last week or over the weekend. I was getting a team that was leading like 150 to 5 plus odds. I'm like, I'm up 150 points and I'm getting plus odds. Where do I sign? I love this cricket stuff. What, are you kidding me?
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Now joins that team in Sacramento with the Kings. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Devin Carter, who they drafted early, Keegan Murray as well. A Kings team, DRS, that has been a playoff contender.
Is it going to equate to a championship? Probably not. That's not the goal. Make your team better every offseason. The Kings definitely got better with that move here, Ben.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid. We continue to talk about this great card coming up out in Sturgis. And no one lives the BKFC more than our man, the Shark, Zach Calamus, joins us now, Gloucester's finest. And, Zach, we want to start with that. I saw, congratulations. We love everything you do in the squared circle. Of course, you're always out there promoting the BKFC. And, you're loving the sport, living it. But, I saw that you're getting some love from the hometown as well. That you're not just repping, of course, the BKFC. You're repping your area, repping your town. You got special citation from the mayor recently.
Yes, sir. Mayor Verga, that's my guy. He's making our city a better place to live in for everyone. And I'm just so proud to bring glory back to the island. I think that nothing in life is worth it, truly, if you're doing it only for yourself. When you have a community in your heart, then you're just going to fight a lot better.
And you're doing a great job with that. You're always repping. And speaking of things you're always repping, I know you have the tattoo of it. Now you're rocking the jersey. Your Trashers right there. I know I saw you recently doing the podcast with those guys as well. Nothing more exciting to you in that area, of course, than your Trashers. How is it to meet up with those guys and get to talk to them about you love the team and the BKFC?
Well, just a lot of love in Connecticut for the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship as a whole. After my big fight at Mohegan Sun and all the great athletes that put on that night, men and women, that was a great card. Connecticut's real excited for Bare Knuckle to come back, and as I can imagine, the whole Northeast is. This is the fastest growing combat sport that is. So to be able to bring glory to my home gym in Danbury, and a lot of my family living in Connecticut, I went to school there, and just to bring glory to Connecticut as well as Gloucester, it just there's no better feeling than that, to give back to the communities that help lift you up to get to where you are. I think a lot of people they say they're going to do that, but I truly live it. If I didn't have Gloucester, if I didn't have my island, I wouldn't be the man I am today. And if I didn't have Connecticut as a state, that border state between New York and Boston, it's been so near and dear to my heart as a place for me to go and train. I know Muhammad Ali would go to Philadelphia. He would go up there and train, and he would go as far as Philadelphia. He would go all over, but in PA, in some very rural areas in Philadelphia. So that's been my Philadelphia. It's been my oasis, if you will, for training. Connecticut's such a great state, so many good people, and hardworking families. So I'm just proud to represent and train there.
And you always have, repped them. You've always repped the BKFC, and you're doing, great things right now. No better person to have fight of the night out in Connecticut than you in that fight against McKenna. Great performance there. The finish in the third round. Talk to us, give us a minute about that fight. What it was like for you to fight in front of the hometown in Connecticut for the BKFC for the first time, and how excited the people up there were to see the BKFC and how quickly they won it back.
Keep it simple. When you're a kid and you look to your dad and you tell him one day that I'm going to fight here. Well, I did that with Lowell Memorial Auditorium. I told my dad in '97, right before Christmas, that I'm going to fight at Lowell Memorial Auditorium and I'm going to be a champion. And I won the Golden Gloves in Lowell and Memorial Auditorium in 2017. I won the open class Golden Gloves. I fought a kid with like 85 fights. So this was just another chapter in my book. I told my dad a year before the Mohegan Sun fight in May 11th, I told him that I'm going to win a bare knuckle fight here within a year. We were at a boxing show up at Mohegan Sun. Me and my dad were at a boxing show. We spent the night at Mohegan Sun, and I told my dad during the fights, I knew a bunch of guys on the card. I said, I'll be here with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship next year. I promise, Dad, I'm going to win. So just another one. You know what I mean? When I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I do it to the best of my ability. I pride myself on being a good athlete, but also being a good man. That's the most important thing.
And you did it well. And not only did you win the fight, you were fight of the night, putting on a great show. And you look forward to doing it again out in Sturgis. It's going to be an awesome card. I've talked to a bunch of fighters what it's going to probably be like fighting in front of thousands of bikers out there at Bike Week. There's going to be probably more excitement and pop than ever before for that card. How excited are you for that? And what is Xiao in for? I mean, this guy's had a couple fights, and they have not gone well. And now they're throwing him into deep waters with the Shark. What is he in for out there in Sturgis?
He won one of those fights well against Sanchez, I believe. When I was looking, he did win one of those fights very well. He only had a couple fights, so I'm not judging him off his bare knuckle record at all. Because the last guy that he fought was Olympic alternate. He was Olympic champion, I believe, from Cuba. And I know that guy's a heavy hitter, and he's very talented. So I don't judge a man completely off their past experiences, more or less off of where they are now. Now, I don't know Ryan Cho super personally. I've met him at the show in Virginia when I fought Josh Freeman. I met my opponent that I'm fighting in Sturgis. So I met him, and he's a really nice guy. There's no animosity. I'm just really looking forward to this fight. It's the battle of the big boys. Let's be honest. Me and Ryan Show, we know how to eat and we know how to throw. So that's what they're in for. You know, this is a real fight for the people to keep their eyes on this one, because Ryan's a beast. And I could quote him. He was saying that he felt like a gladiator, a medieval warrior, or something like that, in his fight that he won over Sanchez, who I know is talented, from Tampa. And what I'm telling you is I'm very educated on the game, and I know Ryan can fight, and I can fight too, you know what I mean? So I'm not taking him lightly. I put in the hardest training camp of my entire life. I've been driving to Connecticut on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 a.m. to avoid traffic. It's 3 hours, 3.5 hours, and it's part of my workout is the driving. I meditate, I get in my zone, and I do what I have to do to do this job. And I'm telling you right now, my new coach in Connecticut that I'm bringing to this fight is all the difference. Coach Dave, AJ Galante, and Danbury, Connecticut.
Well, we're looking to see what they've done and make the Shark even better on a nice win streak here. We'll see if he can get another one and get maybe into those rankings and gets one of these top 5 guys. The Shark, Zach Callis.
Bare knuckle, baby.
On here at SportsGrid.
I want the belt.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It is Canada. Canada is one of those teams that's the darling of the tournament right now. They're still 9-1.
To win a tournament, or even to advance far into a tournament like this, you need a bit of good fortune. And it doesn't matter if you're getting the good fortune that Canada has, where they played 2 matches where they were up a man, or you had the good fortune of Argentina, who's one of the best teams in the world, who just got on the good side of the draw.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Watch out for USA and Canada in 4 years. Cricket's going to be a sport that's growing.
I made my first cricket bet last week or over the weekend. I was getting a team that was leading like 150 to 5 plus odds. I'm like, I'm up 150 points and I'm getting plus odds? Where do I sign? I love this cricket stuff. What are you kidding me?
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in the Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid as we wrap up another episode. Thank you so much to our guests, all getting ready to fight on that August 3rd card out in Sturgis. Going to be a rowdy crowd, going to be some rowdy fights, and we're looking forward to seeing all those guys mix it up as we talk to, of course, double heavyweight show, there with the Shark, Zach Kalmus. Just talked to him last segment earlier. Before that, we talked to Josh Stay Down Watson. Both guys seem tailor-made for this kind of venue out in there, Sturgis, during the bike week. Can't wait to see them mix it up and see what they can do once again for the BKFC. And then also great to get to know Michael Larimore a little bit more. Papa G, who joined us, another Shift MMA guy looking to stay undefeated, looking to make himself a can't-miss prospect for the BKFC coming out of that camp, looking to climb into that top 5 and eventually get gold, as he talked about, the biggest motivating factor providing for his family, of course, as many of these guys have, and he has done a great job so far. Can't wait to see what he does against a game opponent in Perez. Now, before we get out of here, there was a big announcement. We're going to break this down more and more as we get closer to it, but teased there was going to be a big announcement with our man Brian Sosha about something coming up for that Salt Lake City card out the beginning of September, and they let us know what it's going to be. It's a fight that we've been waiting to see. Possibly we talked about it at the end of last year, and coming into 2024, and then we're kind of waiting to see if that was going to be the fight, and it finally is. That we get the Misfit defending her title out at Salt Lake. Of course, no stranger to the high elevation out there in the mountains, fighting multiple times out there on pay-per-view cards. Now she will fight against Jade Masang Wong, the number 1 challenger there, who had a great fight out there in that Prospect Series in Canada when she was elevated to the main event. But it's been a while since that card, and we didn't know if she was going to stay as the number 1 challenger and get that title shot. Of course, you're supposed to have the Misfit versus Heather Hardy at that Connecticut card that fell through due to Hardy's retirement from combat sports in general, due to the maladies she was suffering from her last boxing match. And then now Jade Masang Wong gets to keep that number 1 spot and get that title shot. We said maybe Vichen's could jump her with the performance that she had down in Hollywood. That is not the case. Canada's finest, Jade Masang Wong, will try to get her title away from the Misfit, who holds that title, who's defended it well, one of the best ambassadors for the BKFC. We'll see if she can fare better than anybody else who's got against the Misfits so far, because it has not been a good night for any of them. But Masang Wong is looking to change that trend. Someone else looking for, I'm not sure if it's to keep his title or defend his title or what's going on, is the Baboon, Luis Palomino, the former double champ, the first 2-division champ in the BKFC, put out a call to the BKFC with him training and saying, listen, I'm ready for a fight. Let's go. I hear you got another fight coming down to Hollywood, Florida, in the coming months, as we do know that is happening. That was announced when they were down there a couple weeks ago in Hollywood, Florida. And Luis Palomino looking to get back into the squared circle. Now, we haven't seen him since February 2nd, where he lost to Austin No Doubt Trout, that 165-pound title that he was holding. That now belongs to Trout. But where does Palomino fit into things now? I mean, he was a lightweight champ, never lost that title. But when you look at the rankings, not listed as the champion anymore, listed as number 1 in that division. There is no listed champion. So is Palomino still holding that title? Would he be fighting for that title? Is he giving it up to stay at 165 at 43 years old? Does he not want to get down to 155 anymore? We don't know that. All that remains to be seen, but he's wanting to get in the squared circle. Of course, we want to see him back in there. He was undefeated, 9-0 before that loss to Austin No Doubt Trout. Wins over guys like James Lights Out Lilly, Tom Schoaf, Tyler Goodjohn, and many others. He was, guys like, Dat Nguyen. So big names that he has beaten throughout his time. It's not a soft 9-0. Of course, we've been calling for a long time for him to fight Tony Loco Soto, who was number 1 in those rankings, climbing up, beating guys like Tyler Goodjohn and others as well. But now he is tied up in a fight in Spain in October against number 4, Tenaglia, who now holds the BKFC UK lightweight belt. So, obviously Soto isn't happening as he's getting ready for that fight. You're not going to want to put him in there in Hollywood and possibly lose him as that fight in Spain. Howard Davis, number 5 in those rankings that we showed, seems to be more focused on, in the lower weight class and trying to get back into the title mix there after he lost that fight. Bryce Henry, could he fight Palomino next? This young up-and-comer, he's been hungry. He's been calling for title shots. Or number 4, Bobby Taylor, another guy later in his career right now, like Palomino, who really can't stay around and wait too much longer. 5-2 in the BKFC, won 3 of his last 4, and coming off a win in May. Does he get a shot against, Palomino for either to take that belt or whoever wins it gets it, depending on how the BKFC decides to word it? I don't know. Either way, we know that Palomino is ready, willing, training. Let's get him in there. Let's get another fight with Baboon. because he really wants to get in there. And we always love seeing him fight. It's always exciting. So we'll see what is next for Luis Palomino and the BKFC. But what's next for us is this fight against Pechanga, fight night this weekend. We'll see you next week where we recap everything that happened out in California. Thanks so much for joining us here on SportsGrid.